Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be here. Good to be here at the World Government Summit. Really good to all be gathered again. Fantastic. Very much looking forward to this panel. Gentlemen, thank you. We are here today to talk about the UAE emerging from the COVID pandemic as what my esteemed guests will, I'm sure, suggest is a rapid and vibrant growth story. This is a country that has a vision, a commitment to a diversified and future-looking growth story, providing business and investment opportunities for a very wide profile of people. So what I want to do, because we've got a very, very short period of time today, we could talk at length about this story, but I really do want to just get this kicked off. And start with you, if I can, Your Excellency Helal, to just lay out what your UAE Investment Outlook is as we speak here today through the lens of Dubai.
So first of all, a very good afternoon to everyone here, and welcome to the UAE, to those of you visiting, and especially those visiting the first time. I always get surprised when we see people in the audience here for the first time, but welcome. The investment outlook, as all of us have, as you have alluded to, looks very positive. I think today, in a very turbulent time where you see, people grappling still in many places with COVID, recession plus inflation, the world looks like a relatively scary place to an investor. What we are finding is that the investment the UAE has made over the last 50 years has now built a track record and built confidence. Many of the investors and companies we see here today, they've been here for a while. One of the meetings I had some weeks ago, they showed me their trade license and it said 1968. So, time definitely flies. And that confidence and the resilience of the UAE and the very positive way in which every challenge, including COVID, is handled, where politics don't mix with business or healthcare or anything else, brings a lot of confidence to the world today. And we're seeing a great deal of interest, not just from investors looking to set up global headquarters or an industrial hub or anything, or a tech hub, but we're also seeing a lot of interest from individuals and talent looking to invest in their future by making Dubai and the UAE their home. And for us, I think that level of confidence is something we're humbled by, and we really do see the acceleration continuing to grow. Just to give a small example of the real estate sector, 2021 had more transactions than the last 13 years. So you can see the confidence is, the population is grown significantly, surpassed pre-COVID levels. So you could just see some very small indicators all showing very positive trends.
Thank you. Yeah. No, that's I'd like Excellency Mohammed, will you just bounce off the back of that? I think it's useful to start off with how you believe the learnings and successes of the COVID period have helped, to your mind, accelerate business and the investment offer here.
Thank you, Becky. What you will hear from me, a lot of things will tell you the alignment that we have as Abu Dhabi and Dubai and the UAE in general. But as a start, I think COVID was a wake-up call to a lot of different countries and cities. And we looked at it from an opportunity rather than a pandemic, economic pandemic. So we went back to the drawing board. We looked at what are the areas that we really need to develop. Obviously, leadership in Abu Dhabi and United Arab Emirates trying to reduce the dependency of oil and gas and hydrocarbons of our GDP was significant in terms of moving away from hydrocarbons to diversify completely to a different sectors. What are those sectors that we're talking about? So we looked at agriculture technology, financial technology, healthcare and biopharma, obviously, tourism. And we started again going into the nitty-gritty details of how to make Abu Dhabi competitive. Yes, at the beginning of your introduction, you said you feel safe in United Arab Emirates. And alhamdulillah, Abu Dhabi is the safest city in the world. Obviously, United Arab Emirates and its leadership have played a big role in bringing Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates where it is now. But we've learned a lot during the pandemic.
You talk a lot about forward-facing, forward-looking opportunities here. And I just want for both of you to explain what you mean by that, because that can be, you know, it's a well-used term to a certain extent. But I think it would be useful to just drill down with some examples, if you will, of why you believe. You've talked about the diversification from a hydrocarbons-based economy, but it's this future-looking, forward-facing economy that I think is important to drill down on. Helal, just give me some examples of why it is that you believe that is an offer here in the UAE.
I think it comes down to the attitude towards business and what my esteemed colleague was talking about, which is diversification. Today, the world is moving very fast. If we look at some of the sectors, such as the digital sector, Web 3.0 and virtual assets and everything else, we can see there is a massive evolution happening. I was this morning talking to my son about the Binance summit, which is on, and he said, "Did you have crypto when you were at university?" I said, "They taught us to use emails at university," which was a little while ago. But what we see here is the role of the government, and the role of the government is to really make sure that we don't have an escalation of commitment. We don't believe in protectionism. We don't let politics guide our decision making. The important thing here is for us to stay ahead of the curve and to make sure we create an environment from a regulatory perspective across all sectors that is open, transparent, borderless, and allows investors to feel safe and feel that they have a clear partner with them going forward. The other last comment I would make on this one is the specific sectors mentioned by my colleague as well. A lot of sectors, are moving very fast. Traditional sectors are changing. If you look, for example, at the supply chain today, one of the oldest sectors out there, and logistics, that is undergoing tremendous pressure and change. We as a country are very well positioned at the center of the world, and we play a massive role in the global supply chain. And even traditional industries and businesses like that, you could see how we've managed to pivot to really make sure that businesses are protected. People can look at rebasing here, and also with the private sector, that sort of partnership where they're the people driving this evolution and these opportunities, and we are learning from them all the time about how these sectors should be run.
That's fascinating. It leads me to a question on crypto. To both of you, perhaps Mohammed, you'll start with this. What will the crypto regulatory framework look like in the UAE?
I'm smiling because I was just talking to Helal about it before we come on the stage. And I'm also the regulator of the Security Commodity Authority. And from a crypto regulatory framework, I think the government has to be the enabler to create that ecosystem in the United Arab Emirates. And crypto is coming. We understand that. But we have to have the right framework. We have to have the right regulatory environment for it to thrive. And we have to enable that. And we are working with the local governments as well how to put this on steroids. Because we can attract a lot of those big companies. We can create those crypto assets inside the United Arab Emirates, but we have to regulate the investors and the people that create assets. And this is what we are trying and working very diligently with our eco player partners like Helal and his team, and also in Abu Dhabi as well at the same time. It's coming, it's gonna stay, it's gonna develop. We have to be dynamic and agile in living with this regulatory framework that is changing day by day.
So what will crypto look like for the UAE? Just explain, Helal.
Look, I think we have to, crypto is a word that I think is often misunderstood. And the way we look at it is that, of course, anything related to payments, which is what, a lot of people are talking about, is the purview of the central bank. And we need to make sure that that is regulated, properly and strictly. When it comes to virtual assets in general, this is a whole new ecosystem. When it comes to the metaverse, Web 3.0, when it comes to the different type of utility tokens out there, we need to make sure that this evolution in technology, that the UAE becomes the global capital. And we see the talent movement coming here. We see people, we see major corporates, banks, other multinationals that are starting to, tiptoe into the space, choosing the UAE as their home to do that. And I think we have a very big role to play in that. And I do think, as my colleague said, as long as there is an enabling ecosystem that protects the most vulnerable, the industry will thrive.
How do you ensure? Yeah, because ultimately you have to ensure that this is an above board environment, correct?
Absolutely.
You talked about incoming talent, and you talked about attracting talent, and you talked about that being an environment where you believe there is a real opportunity for the UAE. I just want to talk about that attraction of talent here and how you will retain that talent. And I'm just thinking about what's happening, in the world as we speak at present, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and sadly, the appetite so many young Russians and Ukrainians have for moving out of that space and into other places. How welcome are they here? I'm talking about youngsters with a real appetite to find a safe and evolving environment where they will find opportunities. Helal.
So I think first, let me start with the first part of your question, which is talent. First of all, of course, it all comes back to quality of life and standard of living. And as everybody knows here, the government measures happiness. And let's leave what the government here measures and just look at all the international rankings. The UAE sits at the top of all the rankings, whether it's whichever ranking you look at, sits at the top of the region and sits, depending on the ranking, top 5, top 10 in the world, for quality of life and for ease of access, best place for expats, largest growth in tech, talent, and all of those type of rankings. The question is why? And I think you started off with security, right? Rule of law is, of course, sadly, what a lot of people are looking for today. And also, there are very few places in the world that have developed such a leading infrastructure, both digital and physical, that is new and it works. It was tested during COVID. It worked very well. There was no discrimination between anybody living here. Everybody had equal access to healthcare, vaccination, and in this time, this was important to people, and it wasn't seen at other places. The other thing that I have to say is that we don't want to blow our own trumpet and say it's everything we're doing right. It's not. Actually, a lot of countries around the world have chosen to go, and in many different geographies, have chosen to go in the opposite direction. They're focused on protectionism, nationalism, and all these other words that we, are allergic to here. So I think, there is a pull factor, but there's also the push factor. And we are seeing talented youth, not just youth actually, even retirees from all over the world attracted to the UAE, to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi, to all of the Arab Emirates.
How successful are you being in attracting and retaining international business who are perhaps potentially looking at a different location for their, not just MENA, but international headquarters. How do you provide, or what is that opportunity here that should convince a big multinational corporation that Dubai or Abu Dhabi going forward competes with London, Madrid, Frankfurt, not Madrid particularly, but London, Frankfurt, and Paris, New York, for example?
I think, first of all, we don't use force. Okay, that's one. Two, we show them what's the value add to them being in the United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi or Dubai.
So explain what that value is.
Well, there's a lot. First of all, you have a political stability. That's one. You have an excellent monetary system. You have a state-of-the-art digital infrastructure platforms in the United Arab Emirates. You have 100% ownership of your businesses. Easy to access talent. And not only accessing talents from outside, but the government in the United Arab Emirates are actually developing their local talents as well to the best breed and what type of sectors that are coming up, either in the technology side, in the coding side, in the R&D side. So we are not only investing inside, but we're also trying to attract also talents from outside. That's two. Three, we have to show the people that United Arab Emirates is your springboard to the region. Yes, as an economy, we are not as big as others, but we're talking about 70 to 80% of the population is only 7 to 8 hours flight. And the excellent relationship that the United Arab Emirates has politically and economically with those countries is second to none. The recent agreement that's been signed with India and new FTA agreements that are coming, that's also an added value we give to those companies to be in this part of the world. So there is a lot that we offer to those companies. As my colleague Helal was saying, it's not only the lifestyle, it's not only the talent availability, the progressiveness of the government, the ease of reaching to leadership in the government. It's all of the above.
There will be people in this room who will be well aware of a similar story being talked about by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the moment. There will be people in this room who are also aware of the narrative that said there is a huge competition, which at times feels a little ugly at present. So, Helal, just your perception of this situation. Where are we as far as competition with, you know, a bigger at present economy in this region and a very proactive country? You know, talking a similar story of evolution.
Look, I think I'd like to answer this question in two parts. The first part is we need to really understand that the economies in this region are correlated. And a very similar situation in Europe. So if Germany does well, it's not bad for France, it's good for France. And it's exactly the same here. You know, the UAE is fully behind, you know, the Saudi Plan 2030. We work very closely with our colleagues, and every sector that evolves in the region makes this region more and more important to the world. We're seeing great traction. You know, I can give you tourism as an example. You know, people don't come from the other side of the world to visit only one city. You know, all of us in the room today, when we visit Europe, we very rarely go to one city and spend a month there. We visit different cities and we drive around. I see the evolution of tourism in the region being, you know, allowing us to grab a much larger global share of long-haul travel. Today, people come to the UAE and they go to the Maldives or they go to Africa for safari, but in the future, they'll be able to come and see the wonderful sights around the whole region, and that's going to be extremely positive. But it's the same in every single sector. The second part, I would say, is that, you know, we have to look at, you know, what does the UAE mean to the world in terms of region? My colleague mentioned the word region, but he didn't define exactly which region. And that region has changed over time. You know, last crisis, 2009, it was the Middle East region. And then in 2009, people added Africa to the equation. Today, companies have changed the way they look at the world, and they're looking at where can I have a truly global hub that I can manage the future of the office from. And yes, maybe people are not set up here for America, although in the new digital world that's changing maybe, or China. But when you look at the rest of the world, Central Europe, through Asia, across Turkey and the CIS, you see people growing the hubs they have in the UAE, almost on a monthly basis. And there is not one company that we talk to that is not doing that. Those companies are also growing in Saudi. They're also growing in Qatar. They're also growing in Bahrain. They're also growing in Oman. They're growing in Africa as well. So I do think that, in a world that's troubled by, recession and inflation, this region is offering a lot of opportunity for real growth.
And let's talk about that, because coming out of COVID, we saw a significant uptick in inflation. The crisis in Europe now will only exacerbate that inflationary environment. And I'm sure we will hear this discussed at this World Government Summit over the next 3 days. And it's an important thing to discuss. Are we looking down the barrel of a global recession at present? What is your message, Mohammed, about how the UAE will effect to future-proof itself in what looks like a very, very difficult business and economic environment going forward?
Well, Becky, as you just mentioned, that UAE is part of a global system. And if there is a global recession, we'll definitely get a little bit of this here or there. But how we make it proof being a recession is very simple. First of all, we have an excellent monetary system. That's one. Two, we are investing a lot in our economy. Number three, we are investing also in other countries. We look at it as opportunities as well. A lot of our sovereign wealth funds in Abu Dhabi and Dubai are actually investing in new technologies outside of the UAE. I'm not going to talk about their investments inside, but they're also doing outside tremendously, because there are a lot of opportunities when challenges are coming up. So the governments are becoming more interlinked, much more aligned, one direction. And this is what our leadership want in the United Arab Emirates. And I think, as Helal was saying earlier, there is a lot of communication between Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Federal. And this is the new UAE, if I can put it in a different way. And having that direction will take us to a better place.
At the launch of the 50 projects for the next 50 years, which celebrated the 50-year anniversary of this country, the sort of modality of that was around this idea of the United Arab Emirates, a reminder of the fact that this country, as you rightly points out, is more than just Abu Dhabi and Dubai. The reputation of this country, of Dubai, of Abu Dhabi and the other Emirates, is obviously key to the growth story going forward. And I think we should just address two reputational issues which have come about of late. One is the January the 17th terror attacks here, and your message about how this country will ensure everybody's safety going forward. I mean, as for me as a lifestyle offer, as I say, this is the safest place that I've ever lived in my life. The other story, and Helal, perhaps you'll take this one on, is the issues that the international financial regulator still has to ensure that the UAE doesn't sit on a grey list as far as financing is concerned, anti-money laundering, etc.
Look, I think I think we have to distinguish between the headline titles of the media on the grey list and what was actually written in the FATF report, which is available on their website. So if we move to the latter, it's very clear that it commends the UAE in a very positive way. It's basically saying everything that was asked was done. So I had a question the other day, was what else do you have to do? They've not asked us to do anything else, actually. But it asks for it's basically talking about the effectiveness. And by effectiveness, what they mean is that they want to see the effective implementation over time. So they're basically saying, you've done everything that was asked for, now we just want to wait some time to see, has this all resulted in reporting, fining, whatever else is needed. We're very confident that what's happened now is just for us to monitor. And I want to really thank the central bank and all of the different authorities that have been involved, because it definitely shows, as my colleague had said, the UAE working very closely together as one unit or one nation to make sure that we got this positive report coming out of it.
The UAE's foreign, thank you. The UAE's foreign policy is and will be fully focused on serving the economic interests of this country going forward. The geopolitics of this region are changing rapidly. It is remarkable to see what is going on around this region. But I addressed two issues, and Helal has just spoken to one of them. The other is the security of this nation. It faces, as others do, but let's be quite clear, it has been the victim of attacks at the beginning of this year. Mohammed, what is your message at this point?
We are a country of tolerance and peace, and this has always been entrusted in our, I think, DNA from the creation of United Arab Emirates and our founding fathers, and we'll continue to do this. I think with the recent geopolitical map that's happening around us, we've been entrusted as well to lead how to bring everybody together. And I think this is also a testament to our leadership on their vision, on their of the stability of United Arab Emirates. And I think United Arab Emirates is in a unique position to lead in different arenas to come out of this in a very peaceful way, not only for UAE, but also for the region.
We've got about 2 minutes left. I've been told we must stop on time. This has been terrific. Thank you, guys. A couple of questions left from me. Helal, capital markets and the Dubai IPO pipeline. Where are we at, and what does this mean? What does what's going on in Dubai mean for the wider UAE investment outlook?
So first of all, we are definitely at an exciting time. I think we see a lot of interest, tremendous amount of interest around the Dubai IPO. This is one of 10 government entities which are being looked at to IPO. In addition to many privately owned entities that have started the process and we will see coming through the pipeline. What does this mean for the capital markets here? It means greater depth across sectors. It means greater depth in capital, more transparency in governance. And it also means that it's a great piece of the puzzle as the UAE is a hub for a much wider region, which we talked about, to really play its role in the capital market side as well. If you fast forward, because whenever we talk to investors, we always say, right, this is what we're doing today. We're not shouting about it too much because we have a pipeline and we have to get through the next, all of these IPOs. But if you do fast forward 3 years, you will see a very strong regional hub in the UAE that surpasses, what we see other regional companies looking to, global markets for, because there's more interest in the companies here, the brands are known, and, the investors understand the risk they're taking. So we're very positive about the outlook.
Mohammed.
In Abu Dhabi, Becky, the capital markets is an important pillar in our strategic strategy. Abu Dhabi stock market cap is now about 1.6 trillion dirhams. We have another 15 companies in the pipeline. We created the new IPO fund that will assist family companies and companies from outside to come and list in the Abu Dhabi stock market, and dual listing as well. Again, if the government will not be progressive and enable those companies, it wouldn't be easy for us in Dubai or Abu Dhabi to attract those companies to come and list here.
Final question to both of you. What are you most excited about? Which sector here do you believe is going to really surprise those who don't know this place and really take off in the future? Provide a real pillar for growth.
Go ahead.
Look, I think we're all talking about tech, we're all talking about entrepreneurship, we're all talking about unicorns and everything else, and we're fully behind that. But I think it's interesting because when you look at manufacturing and you look at the next generation of manufacturing and you look at the geopolitics and you look at what the UAE offers in terms of relationships with other countries, the logistics, the supply chain infrastructure, I feel that's going to be the one that surprises us because I think this sheer scale of what we're seeing, especially within the context of ESG and solar, is massive across the UAE. So that's my quick.
And you bring up ESG, and I know Mohammed. Go on.
I agree with Helal. I will definitely add another sector, which is exporting services from here. I believe we have an amazing companies and talents that we can export our expertise from United Arab Emirates to a lot of the regions around us. And I think this is something that we need to keep an eye on.
I think that's it from me. Thank you very much indeed. I hope the audience here has enjoyed this. Gentlemen,
Thank you. Thank you
I'll let
very
you
much.
go.